Hello and welcome to today's GSA Snapshot webinar. In the next 30 minutes or so, our research team will take a look at the continuing emergence of 5G RedCap and eRedCap and the IoT and fixed wireless access use cases the technology support. The on-demand recording of this session will be shared with you immediately following the event. You can also download the presentation at any point by moving your mouse over the screen. You'll see a little download icon at the top right of the screen. There will be time for questions following the presentation, so please do submit any questions you have as we go along using the Q&A function on the right side of your screen, and we'll answer as many as we can. Any we don't get to answer live, we'll endeavour to answer via email after the event. The full report, which was published today, can be downloaded now from the GSA website. We'll share a link with you immediately following this event. But first, we're joined today by Jordan Cox and Ian Fogg from the GSA Research Team. They'll share the latest data. And first by Patrick Kerbel, Chair of the GSA RedCap Special Interest Group, who will kick things off with a quick overview of GSA's work in the RedCap ecosystem. Patrick.
Thank you, and very warm welcome to everyone joining this webinar. We're looking forward to it. There's a lot of great insights that we're going to share around RedCap and eRedCap. Let me just first do a little bit of a brief introduction on GSA. If you're not totally familiar with GSA, the Global Mobile Supplier Association, we were starting in 1998, a long time ago now. And the focus of GSA is actually to promote the 3GPP ecosystem, where a number of major industry executives in the board and as memberships, and also a number of associate subscribers to GSA. We are focusing a lot on advocacy of what is happening in the ecosystem around 3GPP. Creating industry data, intelligence. We have it on our database with the name Gambod. Maybe not so easy to pronounce, but it's easy to remember. So please go in there to check out all the data that we have available for you. We're also running a number of different marketing groups and different working groups in GSA. Maybe the most prominent is the Spectrum group, where we're working very hard towards all the different ITU groups in order to ensure that we secure spectrum and frequency bands as much as possible for the evolution of 3GPP. We're also having a number of SIG, which is then called Special Interest Group, Private Mobile Networks, and RedCap. I'll talk a little bit more about RedCap soon. But I also want to mention the 4G, 5G Fixed Wireless Access Forum, which has evolved quite rapidly the last couple of years, where we have a large ecosystem of CPE vendors, but also others part of the fixed wireless access ecosystem. So if you have an interest into that, please check it out. A lot of information on our website. Also just want to mention that we are covering a lot of different aspects and topics on both devices, satellites, operator, auctions, chipsets, spectrum, RedCap, as I mentioned, and also network. So a lot of that is then compiled into more than 160 annual industry reports, which are there to be consumed and looked at. So I hope that you are all familiar with that big gold mine of data. Now, let me talk about the RedCap Special Interest Group, and that's kind of the reason why I'm doing the introduction. I'm sitting in the board, but I'm also driving the GSA RedCap Special Interest Group. We started that middle of last year with a few of the executives in the GSA, but we're now expanding it with more and more members. The whole idea is, of course, to drive and accelerate the 5G RedCap ecosystem, to accelerate 5G monetization with the lower cost devices that RedCap can provide, and also ensure that these opportunities that exist in the IoT domain, but also in the private 5G networks domain, vertical industries, and also fixed wireless access, all of these can be addressed by RedCap and later eRedCap. So we want to ensure that we are following that and also driving this discussions around RedCap. This whole report that we're going to present soon is coming basically based on this work that we have put a lot of more focus on. So the scope of this special interest group is to engage, educate, share insights with a larger mobile ecosystem around RedCap and the benefits of RedCap technology. And of course, we want to accelerate both RedCap, but also 5G standalone and the possibilities to monetize RedCap capabilities in the industry and on as an evolution of 3GPP technology. So with that, enough talk from me. I want to hand over to the guys that really knows what they're talking about, the GSA Research Team. So with that, Jordan, I hand over to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that introduction, Patrick. I'll just move to the first slide. So good afternoon, everybody. As Patrick mentioned, I'm Jordan Cox, a member of the research team here at the GSA, and I am responsible for coordinating a number of the research projects the GSA undertakes, alongside populating our online database, Gambod, which Patrick has just mentioned there. So in this session, we'll be sharing findings from the GSA's latest hot topic report on 5G RedCap. This report, first introduced in 2024, explores how 5G reduced capability, or RedCap, is shaping the future of 5G for IoT and connected devices. We'll then walk through the use cases for RedCap and take a look at the device and chipset ecosystem developing around it, and start by giving you a current snapshot of the 5G RedCap deployments and 5G standalone networks, which form the foundation for RedCap services. And also for context, we'll also look back at earlier 4G IoT technologies like LTE-M and NB-IoT to understand how RedCap fits into this broader evolution. And finally, this update also introduces enhanced RedCap, or eRedCap, which was standardized in 3GPP release 18 and offers further opportunities for low-cost, low-power 5G devices. So let's start by breaking down exactly what 5G RedCap is and what makes it different. So 5G RedCap stands for Reduced Capability, a feature introduced in 3GPP release 17 to lower the cost and complexity of 5G devices. RedCap is designed to bridge the gap between the high-end performance of enhanced mobile broadband, the reliability of ultra-low latency communications, and the efficiency of massive machine-type communications. And in doing so, RedCap fills a much-needed space in the 5G ecosystem, serving mid-tier applications that require better performance than LTE-M or NB-IoT, but do not need full 5G capabilities. And RedCap offers a number of key benefits. Firstly, lower device costs and complexity. RedCap uses a simplified antenna structure with one transmit and up to 2 receive antennas, compared with complex MIMO in other 5G devices. It supports narrower channels up to 20 megahertz versus 100 megahertz or more in standard 5G, which lowers chipset and power requirements. It also eliminates carrier aggregation, connecting to just one band at a time, which further simplifies design. It offers higher peak data rates than LTE Cat-M and other legacy LTE-based technologies, making RedCap ideal for use cases like video surveillance and smart grid monitoring. It offers lower latency than LTE-M and NB-IoT, enabling real-time communication in applications like industrial automation. It allows access to new 5G spectrum bands, easing pressure on legacy LTE networks and enabling deployment in standalone 5G environments. And finally, it supports network slicing, which allows operators to reserve dedicated resources for specific use cases, improving performance, security, and efficiency in sectors like industrial IoT and mission-critical systems. So overall, RedCap enables a more cost-effective and scalable expansion of the 5G device ecosystem, whilst unlocking new business models and use cases for operators. So now let's take a look at some examples of the use cases where 5G RedCap is already showing strong potential. 5G RedCap supports a growing variety of applications across both the industrial and consumer sectors by offering simplified, lower-cost 5G connectivity without compromising on critical features like reliability or latency. So in industrial settings, RedCap enables smart meters, wireless sensors, and monitoring equipment to operate more efficiently, which is ideal for environments like factory floors or remote asset management. And for instance, RedCap can be utilized to connect a network of wireless industrial sensors to monitor and control machinery in real time. In the public safety and surveillance space, RedCap's strong latency performance supports real-time video feeds from security cameras and wearable body cams used by emergency services. And for operators, RedCap offers a more affordable migration path in fixed wireless access, which helps to expand broadband coverage to underserved and rural areas through low-end CPE devices. And the consumer market is also seeing momentum, particularly in wearables. RedCap supports smartwatches, fitness trackers, and health monitoring devices, all gaining cellular capabilities without requiring the full scale of traditional 5G. And RedCap is also expanding into sectors like retail and logistics. In there, think of fleet tracking, asset management, and inventory scanning, as well as smart city applications like traffic management systems and smart lighting. And in healthcare, RedCap is capable of powering non-critical medical equipment and remote patient monitoring. And in the automotive space, it's enabling basic connected car systems and vehicle diagnostics. And so the common thread across all of these use cases is the need for efficient, lower cost 5G that still delivers key benefits like power savings and sufficient throughput. And RedCap is positioned right in that sweet spot. And as the ecosystem matures, it's unlocking new opportunities for cellular IoT applications globally. So to deploy 5G RedCap, operators must have a 5G standalone network in place. And unlike non-standalone 5G, which is still anchored to legacy 4G infrastructure, 5G standalone uses a dedicated 5G core. And this architecture enables the simplified and efficient connectivity that RedCap relies on. And so when we talk about RedCap readiness, it's directly tied to the global rollout of 5G standalone networks. And as of our latest update, the GSA has identified 154 operators in 63 countries that are investing in 5G standalone. This includes those that have launched services, as well as those conducting trials, planning deployments, or are currently actively deploying their networks. And so the majority of these deployments are happening across major markets in Asia, Europe, and Northern America, regions that are leading the shift toward 5G standalone adoption. And the ongoing expansion of standalone networks is a critical enabler, not just for RedCap, but for the wider 5G ecosystem. And as these networks mature, they open the door to a new generation of low complexity, cost-efficient devices powered by RedCap. So now that we've looked at 5G standalone as a prerequisite, let's turn to the current state of 5G RedCap itself. And as of the latest update, the GSA has identified 30 operators across 21 countries that are investing in 5G RedCap technology. This confirms that RedCap is still in the early stages of adoption, but momentum is starting to build. And so far, only 6 operators have commercially launched RedCap services. These include STC in Kuwait, DITO in the Philippines, T-Mobile in the United States, and China's 3 major mobile operators, China Mobile, China Telecom, and China Unicom. And the majority of activity right now is focused on testing and trials. The GSA reports that 20 operators in 17 countries are currently evaluating RedCap through technical trials or pilot deployments. And the chart shown on this slide provides a snapshot of global RedCap investment globally, both by country and by the stage of operator investment. And while early, these developments signal that RedCap is starting to transition from concept to commercial reality, especially as more operators advance their standalone 5G networks. So when we look at the regional momentum behind 5G RedCap, two areas clearly stand out, these being Asia Pacific and the Middle East. The Asia Pacific region is seeing the fastest adoption, accounting for 33% of all 5G RedCap operator investments. This includes 10 operator investments and notably 3 commercial launches in China, from China Mobile, China Telecom, and China Unicom, which I mentioned in the previous slide. The Middle East follows closely, representing 30% of global investments in RedCap. This reflects not only strong interest in advanced mobile technologies, but also the region's push toward Industry 4.0 and the cost efficiencies that RedCap can offer. And elsewhere, Europe accounts for 20% of investments, while Northern America and Oceania trail with 10% and 7% respectively. So these figures again highlight how regional priorities and readiness, particularly around 5G standalone infrastructure and industrial digitalization, are shaping the global rollout of 5G RedCap, even in these early stages. So now let's turn to the device and chipset ecosystem supporting 5G RedCap, which, much like network deployments, remains in the very early stages of development. The GSA has identified 6 chipsets that support RedCap capabilities. These include Qualcomm's Snapdragon X35, MediaTek's T300 series and M60 modem, the Unisoc V517, ASR 1903, and the Sequans Taurus 5G new radio. And on the device side, the GSA has tracked 25 RedCap capable devices, a mix of modules and end user equipment. And these devices include modules from vendors like Fibocom, Quectel, Simcom, Telit Centurion, and MyG, among others, as well as early CPEs, routers, and Wi-Fi devices from MyG, Teltonica, TCL, and For Faith. And whilst numbers are still modest, we expect this ecosystem to expand significantly throughout 2025, particularly as commercial launches and operator trials continue to ramp up. And growth in both device and chipset availability will be crucial for unlocking the full potential of RedCap in both industrial, consumer, and public sector use cases. So now let's take a step back and moving on to NB-IoT, one of the earlier low-power wide area network technologies designed for IoT. NB-IoT prioritizes minimal narrowband data rates and maximizing battery life, making it ideal for static or delay-tolerant use cases like utility meters, environmental sensors, and smart agriculture. And by focusing on small, infrequent data transmissions and using narrowband spectrum, NB-IoT helps reduce both device and network infrastructure costs. And this simplicity enables scalable, cost-effective deployments while also contributing to network sustainability through more efficient use of spectrum and energy. However, it's important to note that NB-IoT is less suited for applications needing broadband speeds, mobility, or low latency, areas where technologies like LTE-M or RedCap become much more appropriate. So of the latest update, the GSA has identified 177 operators globally investing in NB-IoT technology. And of these, 134 operators across 67 countries have already launched deployments. And another 33 operators in 31 countries are currently testing or planning their NB-IoT rollouts. And NB-IoT remains a foundational layer in the global IoT landscape, particularly where low-cost, low-power connectivity is essential. So now let's look at LTE-M, also known as Cat-M1, which is another low-power wide area technology designed for IoT. LTE-M runs on existing LTE networks and provides better coverage and battery performance compared to older cellular standards. It supports features like reduced device complexity, half-duplex operation to conserve energy, extended coverage, and even voice support, making it ideal for applications such as smart meters, asset tracking, and wearables. And in the LTE era, LTE-M simplified and lowered the cost of LTE for IoT in much the same way that RedCap is now doing for 5G. And if network performance demands grow, especially for mobility and richer data use cases, then 5G RedCap is a notable upgrade to LTE-M. And as of the latest update, the GSA has identified 82 operators globally investing in LTE-M. And of these, 62 operators across 39 countries have launched commercial LTE-M networks. And another 12 operators in 10 countries are either deploying or testing the technology. And whilst LTE-M adoption is currently more mature than RedCap, it's worth noting how RedCap will grow and become an important next generation IoT standard. So let's now take a quick look at eRedCap, or enhanced RedCap, which marks the next step forward in 5G IoT development. Introduced in 3GPP Release 18 in 2024, eRedCap is designed to further reduce complexity and cost for 5G-enabled devices. And while standard RedCap focuses on striking a balance between performance and efficiency, eRedCap takes this a step further, offering a lower peak data rate of around 10 megabits per second. And the intention here is to better support cost-sensitive use cases, similar to what we've seen with LTE Cat 1 and Cat 1 Biz. So think of devices like basic asset trackers, smart meters, and low-cost industrial sensors, where high throughput isn't essential, but 5G level efficiency and longevity are still valuable. And while eRedCap is still in its infancy, momentum is expected to build as chipset and network support emerges, enabling wider scale commercial deployments in the coming years. So it's a promising development for the future of cost-efficient, low to mid performance 5G IoT. So to wrap up before the Q&A session, let's share the GSA's perspective on where this market is heading. By lowering the cost of 5G devices while still supporting advanced features like network slicing and 5G-only spectrum, RedCap gives operators a way to better monetize their 5G investments. It can also accelerate the migration away from older LTE-based technologies, simplifying operator portfolios and aligning more closely with 5G core networks. RedCap's sweet spot lies in bridging the gap, serving mid-tier IoT applications that need more performance than NB-IoT or LTE-M, but don't require the full capabilities of enhanced mobile broadband. And there's clear demand from industries and connectivity providers looking to modernize, and we expect significant growth for RedCap devices and deployments in the coming years. And now, while eRedCap won't replace RedCap, it will provide a lower cost, lower power alternative for ultra lightweight applications, such as wearables or smart meters, and when it matures. But here's the key point. RedCap is already here. It's moved beyond the standards phase with real trials, modules, and deployments beginning in 2024 and accelerating through 2025 and into 2026. Meanwhile, eRedCap, finalized only very recently in 3GPP Release 18, will take time to enter the commercial space, likely not before 2026 or 2027. So in the short to medium term, RedCap will remain the go-to solution for expanding the 5G ecosystem to lower price points and increasing appeal for IoT uses. And both technologies also highlight the importance of 5G standalone networks, which are required for them to fulfill their full potential. As RedCap and eRedCap adoption grows, we may well see this drive greater adoption of 5G standalone deployments globally, especially in markets already moving toward industrial digital transformation. So that brings us to the end of the presentation, and I will hand back over to my colleague Ian Fogg and Patrick for the Q&A session. Right. There's Ian.
Great, thank you, Jordan. So looking at the chat, if you have questions, please fire them in. One question that came up, I know previously, Patrick, was on how NB-IoT and LTE Cat M, how they relate to RedCap. Is RedCap or eRedCap a successor, or is it something that's a complement to those older technologies? I wonder if you want to take that one.
Sure. I'll start there. I would say it's a complement. It addresses a little bit of a different piece of the market, in the sense that it actually offers higher data rates than both narrowband IoT and LTM. And so in that sense, if you say RedCap, it's more to be compared with LTE Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 4, and offers then bit rates of up to 225 megabits per second, depending on whether you're using FDD or TDD and so on. So there is a capability there where RedCap fills the gap between what we have today and the technologies narrowband IoT and LTM, and what Jordan talked about, the more NR or mobile broadband devices as we know them.
We have another question in the chat, which is, will the 5G RedCap special interest group cover eRedCap as well?
And the answer is yes. We will follow both RedCap and eRedCap and try to promote them. I mean, the fact is, and you can actually dig up the data yourself, but if you look at GSA Gambot data and look at the devices on 4G that are not phones or CPEs or modules, but just look at these that are more, I would say, call them application-specific devices. You can find basically more than 1,000 different type of devices. On 5G, it's around 50, 60, 70. It's a big difference. That's where RedCap, once that starts to happening, can actually fill them and ensure that we actually get more. Both RedCap, eRedCap is needed, and we want to ensure that momentum is accelerating.
Great. We have a bunch of questions in the chat. There's a question here which I'll fire to both Jordan and Patrick. What's the typical cost of RedCap chipsets and modules? How much less expensive is eRedCap? I guess that might be tricky because eRedCap's so new. But any thoughts on the cost impact on devices and chipsets?
I don't have a good view on that, unfortunately, so I can't really comment on what the difference is. In all new devices and new things that are coming to market, it always starts a little bit higher, than over time you would probably see more and more cost-effective devices coming out. That, I guess, would be the same thing here.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I guess the key thing with RedCap is it is a much simpler device because of the antenna requirements, the limitation, I think, on the 20 megahertz channel compared to 100 megahertz on regular 5G. And what that means is that lower throughput, because of the simpler antenna design, also means the processing element. You don't need to have as a powerful a chipset to process the data traffic as well. So the cost should be considerably lower. I guess the question is, it's still relatively early for these things, so the scale economies are not there yet quite to the same extent. Is that fair, Patrick?
Yeah, absolutely.
A bunch of questions. What are the requirements for a 5G standalone mobile operator to implement RedCap in its network? Take that.
Yeah, I can start, and obviously it will probably vary a little bit, but the capabilities that comes with 5G and standalone is, of course, the basic requirement. And then it usually is also capabilities for RedCap, or a feature for software for RedCap that is needed. But that I would suggest that you go to your infrastructure vendor to double check exactly what it is that you need.
So it's going to vary a bit depending on who the suppliers are to a given operator, whether RedCap's part of the standard offering, whether it's a software upgrade, that piece. And I guess there may also be not a requirement, but a desire for the operator to validate RedCap devices, because operators have a habit of being quite cautious. Let me through. There are lots and lots of questions here. There's a question: can you explain the difference between using FWA with 5G RedCap and FWA with traditional 5G? Who wants to take that? If not, I can jump in and say a few words. Anyone wants to grab that?
No, I'll leave that. Oh, sorry, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can fill in, of course, but fixed wireless access with normal NR capabilities is, I would say, a complement and gives fiber-like capabilities, basically. So if that's what you're after, then that would definitely be the way to go. When it comes to RedCap, of course, with CPEs, you get a more simpler solution. It becomes more cost effective, the CPE itself, because of this. But of course, the performance numbers in terms of megabits per second will be lower. So it's a different type of offerings. I don't know.
I think the comparison there really should be between 5G RedCap and an LTE FWA solution, because that's probably the migration path that's most likely. The RedCap gets the CPE price for the 5G device down, and that's very attractive in certain parts of the world, like Southeast Asia, where ARPUs are lower, but there's still lots of requirement, interest in FWA. There, the big advantage when you go to FWA with 5G RedCap is, firstly, you can tap into 5G specific spectrum bands, maybe in the 3 to 6 gigahertz range, which are high capacity, which you don't really address with a 4G network. So with a 4G FWA, the risk is you're putting that data traffic load on lower 4G bands where you want to support your 4G smartphone users. If you transition to 5G RedCap, you can tap into, say, a 3.5 gigahertz band that's 5G only, quite a high capacity band, no legacy users on it. The other piece is when you go over to 5G, whether it's RedCap or a standalone 5G network, you can also put it on a network slice. So you can segregate the FWA traffic and make sure that it doesn't affect the experience for smartphone users. And we've seen a number of operators around the world, not just with RedCap, but with 5G standalone more generally, put FWA traffic onto a slice. Jordan, you look through as well in case I missed some of the questions here, because there's a bunch of questions.
There's a quick question on the SIG for you, Patrick, which is probably worth mentioning as well. So there's a question here basically asking, what are you hoping to achieve with the RedCap SIG? How do you see that progressing as we move forward?
Yeah, so thank you. The special interest group that we have recently started, of course, I mean, the purpose and the scope, which I talked about, is, of course, to educate as much as possible, make RedCap known, and hopefully, support the momentum in the market for RedCap. We see RedCap being a great potential in many different applications, and also a way to monetize 5G and 5G SA. So we want to encourage the ecosystem to get that going, and we can almost look at the way that we have managed to do the fixed wireless access forum, where we actually expanded from more of a marketing group into a forum where we have more and more device and equipment manufacturers joining, and also then supporting the fixed wireless access part. I think we can see a similar roadmap for this special interest group for RedCap, and let's see. I mean, the more the merrier. We need everyone to play its part in the ecosystem to get this to go.
Great, thank you very much.
So there's a question here, which is, does RedCap support voice over NR or 5G new calling, and also a similar question on eDRX? Anyone want to grab that?
For Jordan, or?
Happy for either of you guys to answer that one, if you wanted to.
I think it does support voice over NR. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. But I don't think that's a key driver of RedCap per se. I know there's another question here saying that RedCap's predominantly an IoT play. I mean, one of the use cases that have come up in the past are things like smartwatches, where there's definitely interest in it because it's low power requirement and it's great simplicity. And I think in a smartwatch, you probably would want to support 5G voice as well as data traffic. So I'm kind of assuming it does, but I don't know offhand for sure on the spec side on that. We can come back to you on that one.
Yeah. There's a question here that's quite interesting. So I could probably answer initially, and if you guys want to answer, sort of add to it. So it's mentioning that the coverage of 5G standalone is still patchy globally, and 6G has been started to be discussed. It mentions that we may see this situation that 6G deployment starts before 5G standalone is spread globally, and it means the use case of RedCap may be limited. And it basically asks, what is the biggest motivation to invest in RedCap? So to answer that question initially, in terms of 5G standalone, we are seeing an increase in activity with 5G standalone. As the slides show, a lot more operators are now investing in 5G standalone, and you can expect to see much more commercial launches of 5G standalone globally. But yeah, maybe the question for you guys, what's the biggest motivation for investment in RedCap? What do you guys think on that front?
Yeah, you got me thinking there when you answered, Jordan, because if you think about the 5G actually became in terms of number of subscriptions on smartphones, but overall in the world, it became the dominant technology last year or 2 years ago. So basically, it took quite a long time from 5G was launched until it actually became the dominant technology. So 6G being launched 2030, it probably won't be the dominant technology until 2037, 2040. You know, there's a lot of time from now until then for 5G to be the technology of choice for a lot of things. So there's no reason not to invest in 5G now and try to wait. That's usually not a good idea if you want to make money.
Yeah. I think there's another piece. I'll pick up some 6G piece. I mean, 6G standardization formally started, I think, the week after Mobile World Congress in Seoul. It's a 2-year, I think, process to kind of write the standards and 2-year to kind of build implementation. So we're looking at, you know, probably a 2030 rollout at some point somewhere in the world. So we're still probably 5 years away from that. But the question, I guess, is if you invest in standalone or RedCap now, is that an investment that will last into the 6G era? And I think it's quite likely that will be the case, that will be an evolution of what we see with 5G standalone. Frankly, I think it will be a more complex 6G deployment, most likely, for an operator that's still on non-standalone than one that's moved on to a 5G cloud core and has a modern architecture in their network. We had that earlier question, I think, around some of the LTE or originally LTE era technologies. And I think you made the point, Patrick, in one of our discussions last week, that although those started in the 4G era, they are part of the 5G evolution as well. And they are a complementary offering to RedCap. So into the 6G era, I think I would expect that RedCap would have an evolution path and still be maintained within the 3GPP standards.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It will continue. I mean, my comment there was just to say that 5G will continue for a very long time, but you are absolutely right. 6G and 6G core will probably be an evolution of the 5G core and be basically the same one that supports than RedCap. So RedCap will most probably live for a very long time and be part of the 6G standard as well.
What are we doing on questions?
There's a lot coming through. There's
a lot.
there's a question on NTN. Maybe for you, Ian or Patrick, if you feel you want to answer this as well. Where does RedCap fit with NTN? Obviously, NTN's a big area at the moment. What are your thoughts on that, if at all?
Yeah, I haven't thought so much about it. I mean, I think it's more the use case based thinking you should have there. You know, what are we actually trying to achieve here with a more simplified architecture for devices? Then they would be, of course, be possible to use for all kinds of situations. Whether that is also on NTN cases, I don't know, but.
I guess one way to think about it is if an operator is on that 5G evolution path, if they were to deploy a standards-based NTN solution, they need to be thinking release 17, release 18, which is the same kind of releases you need for first RedCap and then eRedCap. So I think both of them give operators a reason to move on from those early 5G non-standalone deployments on release 15 or release 16. They both give that operator a push to go, if you modernize your architecture, then you can start looking at standards-based NTN, then you can start looking at RedCap.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, we've got a lot of questions still coming through at the moment. Maybe time for one more question, and then we can definitely answer these questions after the webinar.
Sure.
So
there's a question here which I'll just take really quickly while you're looking about is RedCap predominantly an IoT thing or an FWA thing? If you look at our Gambod database, we track devices in both categories already. I wouldn't say it's predominantly one or the other. We're seeing quite a lot of early momentum on the FWA side, on the device side, and that's all in the database that's on Gambod on the GSA website. Sorry, Jordan, jump in.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, maybe the last question then. So there's a question on which proportion or what proportion of 5G standalone operators do you expect to support RedCap in the future, especially considering the associated extra costs? Have you got any thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, of course, with a positive mindset, I would assume everyone will go RedCap, because I guess, and I really think so, that the momentum of RedCap will increase with devices becoming available, with more and more networks being supportive of both standalone and RedCap. So that will be the one of the key features going forward for new type of IoT devices, both IoT and fixed wireless access and so on. So I don't see any reason for in the future not everyone. I mean, everyone would be supporting RedCap.
I think when I had a bit more brown hair, I remember having a similar question posed about LT Cat-M and NB-IoT, and obviously now we have fairly wide traction on those networks, and I think, as Patrick said, it will be the same. I think it's more a timing thing.
Yeah.
Once we see a large market, whether it's Indonesia or Philippines or China or India, if we see a large market starting to embrace RedCap devices, that will drive the scale economies on the CPE side and make it much easier to make the business case for RedCap. But I think what I would say is that what's been holding it back to some extent has been the slow deployment of standalone networks. But we are seeing that traction as we talked about in the webinar now. But as an operator deploys standalone, they should be thinking, okay, we've got this new architecture, this new core network. What are we going to do with it? And one of the things they should be evaluating is does RedCap make sense on the back of that standalone deployment?
Perfect. Great. Thank you very much, guys. I think that's probably all we've got time for on this call. But we will strive to answer all of the remaining questions after the webinar, and we will be sending some emails to the question askers. But I'll hand back to Richard White to close out today's session.
Cheers. Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us today. So loads of questions, so we'll endeavour to answer as many as we can after the event. I'll just close today by again sort of thanking you for joining, thanking our research team and Patrick for joining us. After the event, you'll get a link to the webinar recording, to the presentation, and to the full report. Our next event will focus on 5G Advanced. It's the first time we've looked at this topic. So if you'd like a 30-minute primer on the technology enhancements underpinning 5G Advanced, its timeline to standardization and commercialization, and what it means for the mobile ecosystem and the new use cases it unlocks, then please do join us in that webinar. Again, you can download, and the registration link will be shared with you immediately following the event. Access to all the detailed data, as Ian also intimated, behind all these reports is available in the Gambod's database. Gambod is available to all employees of GSA member and associate organizations. So if you're not a GSA associate and you're interested in getting access to Gambod, please do get in touch. For the latest updates and all our research, again, follow GSA on the social channels on screen. And if you go to the website, you can also register for the email updates straight into your inbox every week of the latest reports as they are published, and our monthly newsletter. So finally, on behalf of the GSA team, I'll say, first of all, thank you for joining us. We've gone over by our usual 15 minutes, which just speaks testament to how much interest there is in this topic. So thank you all again, and hope to see you at an event again soon. Many thanks.